Welcome to the Deep Dive. This is where we take some information, some data, and really try to unpack what it's all about.
Yeah, get beneath the surface a little.
Exactly. And today, we're diving into something that, well, maybe gets a bit lost sometimes in all the daily news noise. We're looking at positive global trends, things that have actually gotten better over the last few decades.
It's a refreshing change of pace, right? To focus on the positives for a bit.
It really is. We've got this set of data points here based on an article called 10 Positive Facts to Celebrate the World Today. And it does push back a little against that feeling you can get sometimes that, everything's heading downhill.
That constant negative feed, yeah.
So our mission today, if you like, is to explore these facts, get a more balanced view of global progress, see where we've made strides, but also, crucially, where there's still, well, work to do.
Absolutely. It's about acknowledging both sides, the achievements and the ongoing needs. It's so easy to miss the big picture improvements when you're just seeing headlines day to day.
Right. So should we dive in?
Let's do it.
Okay, so the first thing that really jumped out was about poverty, extreme poverty. The stat says the proportion of people living on less than about $2 a day, it's almost halved in the last 20 years.
That is genuinely remarkable, isn't it, halved? Since the late 90s, basically.
Yeah, that's a huge shift.
It really is. And it's down to a mix of things, economic growth in lots of places, more focused development work, probably better aid targeting in some cases.
So complex factors.
Definitely. But the really striking thing, I think, is what the article hints at for the future. If this trend keeps going, we could potentially see extreme poverty essentially solved, maybe in a few generations.
Wow. Solved. That's a powerful idea.
It really puts things in perspective.
Okay, so building on that, thinking about basic needs. Electricity access. The number here is 80%. 80% of people globally have some access now.
Which is another massive step forward. Think about what electricity enables.
Everything, pretty much.
Right. Education after dark, keeping vaccines cold, businesses running, just basic safety. It's transformative. Getting to 80% is a real achievement.
But there's a but, isn't there?
There is, yeah. The progress hasn't been even. The article points out sub-Saharan Africa specifically.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, there's still a big gap there. It needs a lot more focus, more investment to catch up.
Right. So 80% overall, but pockets where it's much lower. That makes sense. Now, let's talk about the economy more broadly. Income per person doubled since 2000.
Yeah, on average, globally. That reflects quite a period of significant growth worldwide.
Where has that been felt most?
Well, the article mentions Asia particularly. You've seen this huge expansion of the middle class there.
Okay.
And that's been a major driver, lifting people out of poverty, creating new opportunities. It's a big part of that poverty reduction story we just talked about.
Sure, it connects.
But it's an important but. It also brings up the question of distribution, doesn't it?
How so?
Well, you look at many Western economies and you see this growing income gap. The difference between average earners and those right at the top, it's widened.
Ah, right. So the average going up doesn't mean everyone's share went up equally?
Exactly. The rising tide didn't necessarily lift all boats at the same rate. So, yes, progress, but with nuances.
Okay, got it. Let's shift to education. School enrollment, up 17% since 1970. That sounds like steady progress.
It is good news. More kids in school is fundamental for, well, everything, really. Long-term development, healthier societies, stronger economies.
Yeah, absolutely.
But again, there's that other figure in the article that kind of stops you short.
Which is?
264 million children still not in school.
Wow. 264 million.
Yeah. So great progress on enrollment rates, but a massive number of kids are still missing out entirely. It highlights how far we still have to go to actually achieve universal education.
What do you think the big barriers are there for those 264 million?
Oh, it's complex. You've got conflict zones, obviously. Deep poverty, where families just can't afford to send kids or need them to work. Lack of schools or teachers in remote areas. Gender discrimination plays a role, too.
That brings us to the next point, actually. Girls' education. Specifically in low-income countries. The stat is 60% of girls now complete primary school.
Which is a really positive, specific indicator, isn't it? Focusing on girls' education has such huge knock-on effects.
Like what?
Well, better health outcomes for them and their future families, lower child marriage rates, more economic power for women. It's incredibly impactful.
So getting to 60% completion is significant.
Definitely a big improvement. But The article also points out girls are still 1.5 times more likely than boys to be out of primary school altogether in those same regions.
Ah, so even with the 60% completion rate, there's still an underlying disparity in access to begin with.
Precisely. So progress, yes, but that gender gap in basic access persists. We need targeted efforts there.
It's good to see that alongside another point here, female political participation apparently more than doubled since 2000.
Yes, that's a really encouraging trend. Getting more women's voices into decision-making is vital.
Why vital?
Because different perspectives make for better, more rounded policies. It leads to more inclusive societies when leadership reflects the population better.
Makes sense. But what's the actual level now? Doubled sounds good, but doubled from what?
That's the key question, isn't it? Even after doubling, women hold only about 23% of parliamentary seats globally.
Oh, okay. So better, much better, but still a long way from parity.
A very long way. Moving in the right direction, definitely. But the pace, well, there's room for acceleration.
Right. Okay, let's switch gears to the environment. Energy. Renewable energy. Installed capacity is up 80% since just 2010.
That's a huge jump in a relatively short time. Really shows the momentum building behind renewables.
When we say installed capacity, what does that actually mean practically?
Good question. It's basically the maximum amount of power that all the installed solar panels, wind turbines, hydro dams, etc. could produce at full tilt. So an 80% increase means we've massively expanded our potential to generate clean energy.
That sounds very positive for climate goals.
It absolutely is. It's crucial, but context is important here too.
Okay.
That huge growth in capacity. Well, renewable energy still only accounts for about 25% of all the energy we actually consume globally.
Ah, only a quarter.
Yeah, so capacity is growing fast, which is great, but it started from a low base compared to fossil fuels. It shows the sheer scale of the transition that's still needed to get fossil fuels down to where they need to be.
That really puts it in perspective. Okay, another area, public health. Childhood vaccinations. 80% of the world's 1-year-olds today have had vaccinations against some disease.
That is one of the truly great public health success stories, isn't it? Vaccinations are just so incredibly effective.
80% sounds pretty high.
It is. It saved millions upon millions of lives, and the article mentions a record number, 123 million children immunized in just 1 year, 2017. That's a massive global effort.
Incredible coordination needed for that.
Absolutely. Healthcare workers, international organizations. But again, the article rightly flags the flip side.
The remaining 20%.
Well, yes, and the fact that millions of children are still missed, often the most vulnerable, hardest to reach kids, they don't have access to these basic life-saving vaccines, that remains a huge challenge.
Yeah, that 80% is amazing, but you can't forget the millions still left out. Okay, next up, safe drinking water. Access has gone up by 16% globally since 2000.
Another fundamental, isn't it? Safe water, essential for health, for sanitation, for just basic dignity.
16% since 2000 sounds like solid progress.
It means millions more people have access to something absolutely vital. But the number that follows,
What's that?
it still only means 71% of the world's population has access to safely managed drinking water.
71%. So nearly 30% don't.
Exactly. Nearly 3 out of 10 people on the planet still lack something so basic. Again, progress, yes, but a stark reminder of the scale of the remaining need.
It really is staggering when you think about it that way. Okay, and the final point highlighted here is life expectancy.
Ah, yes, the big one, maybe.
It's gone from 53 years back in 1960 to 72 in 2017.
That is just a phenomenal increase, isn't it? Almost 20 years added to average global life expectancy in just over half a century.
What does that reflect, do you think?
Oh, it reflects progress across so many fronts. Better healthcare, obviously, including those vaccinations we talked about. Better nutrition for many. Improved sanitation and access to clean water. Reductions in violence in many places. It's kind of an aggregate measure of overall improvement in human well-being.
Yeah, going from 53 to 72 really sums up a lot of the other positive trends we've discussed.
It really does. It's a powerful single indicator.
So if we step back and look at all of these points together, poverty, electricity, income, education, health, even political participation to some extent, it does paint a significantly more optimistic picture than the daily news cycle often suggests.
I think that's fair to say. It's not that the challenges aren't real, they absolutely are, and we've touched on the caveats for nearly every point.
Right, the gaps, the disparities.
Exactly. But it's undeniable that real substantial progress has been made on many crucial fronts over recent decades. Humanity has actually achieved quite a lot.
It feels important to acknowledge that, to hold both things in mind, like you said earlier, the achievements and the challenges.
Precisely. Recognizing the progress gives us, maybe, a bit of hope, and also helps us see where efforts have worked and where we need to double down to tackle those remaining issues, to make sure the progress is shared more fairly.
Yeah. It's not about being complacent, is it? It's about having an informed perspective.
Couldn't agree more. It fuels informed action, hopefully.
Well, this has been a really valuable deep dive, I think. Just laying out these positive trends gives such a different feel to the global situation. Thank you for walking through this data with me.
My pleasure. It's always good to look at the longer view sometimes.
And thank you, our listeners, for joining us on this exploration. It's definitely food for thought, seeing the progress, but also being reminded of how much further we need to go. Perhaps something to consider is, how can individual actions or our collective efforts help speed up these positive trends and really tackle those areas still lagging behind?
Good question to ponder.
Indeed. We'll catch you next time for another deep dive. Goodbye for now.